Hey squirrels, welcome to ADHD, where ADHD isn't some clinical diagnosis, it's just life. I'm AV, your always honest tour guide through this beautiful mess. Over here, we're not about fixing yourself. We're about figuring out how to actually enjoy your life as you are. So grab a snack and let's go. All right, squirrels, today we have something extra special. We are talking to Mr. Peter Shankman, and I'm so excited to welcome you today. You have really made a difference in how we see ADHD, not just as a challenge, but as a really powerful gift. And we are a strengths-based channel over here. So we definitely appreciate that lens. Peter Shankman is a 6-time best-selling author, an entrepreneur, and an incredible voice in the worlds of marketing, customer experience, and ADHD advocacy, and the host of Faster Than Normal, the #1 podcast on ADHD that has helped thousands and thousands of people embrace their faster brains. And you have a book. Your latest book, The Boy with the Faster Brain, is showing kids everywhere that having a different brain is something to be proud of. And that's how I personally came to my own diagnosis through my children. I think a lot of us late diagnosis folk have that same experience. We see our kids and we're like, wow, those are weird in comparison to these other like sort of boringer version of kids. And then we recognize these like characteristics and come to our late diagnosis. So thank you so much for being here, Peter.
That's good.
So today we're talking about coming out of the new closet, especially in corporate America, especially in these very strange times that we have brought upon ourselves. As how does neurodivergency and being neurodivergent play in corporate America?
I think it depends on what company you're with. There are a ton of companies that embrace DEI and embrace the premise that everyone's differences are beneficial to the company. At the end of the day, a company's job is to generate revenue. And more companies are realizing now that they can generate a lot of revenue by having different minds and different brains, as opposed to sort of one hive mind. I have seen the classic, I always bring up this fun story. A zookeeper takes 5 baboons and puts them in a cage. And he puts a ladder in the middle of the cage and ties a bunch of bananas at the top of the cage. Puts the ladder under it. And first day he does that, one of the baboons notices the ladder and notices the bananas and climbs up the ladder to get the bananas. And as he's sitting there eating the bananas, the other 4 baboons get hit with ice cold water from a fire hose held by the zookeeper. The next day, the same baboon sees the bananas come in. He runs up for it. And as he's eating the bananas, the other 4 baboons get hit with the fire hose again. The third day, the baboon notices the bananas back. And before he can even get to rung 2 of the ladder, the other 5 baboons stop him, pull him down, and beat the shit out of him. And, they don't want to get hit with the water. So over the course of a week or so, all the baboons learn that they can't go up the ladder or they're going to get hit with the rest of them get hit with ice water and get beaten up. So eventually they start ignoring the ladder. And then the zookeeper takes one of the baboons out and replaces it with a new baboon who doesn't know this and immediately starts to run for the ladder and immediately gets the shit beat out of him. Over time, over the next couple of weeks, the zookeeper replaces the original other 4 baboons with new baboons. Now you got 5 baboons in a room, all of whom know not to climb the ladder or they're going to get the crap kicked out of them, but none of them know why. Mm-hmm. And the answer is, well, that's the way we've always done it. So that becomes a wonderful analogy of business in the respect that we don't want to try anything new because that's the way we've always done it and we'll get in trouble if it doesn't work. Well, what if it does work? What if you can radically increase profits, increase revenue, improve employee morale, improve customer morale, improve the general output of your company? And once you realize that neurodiverse thinking can do that and so much more, some companies get it. A lot of companies don't get it. But the ones that I'm working with, Morgan Stanley, Adobe, Google, Quad School, they tend to get it. and they understand that there's benefit in thinking different.
So have you always been open about your ADHD?
As soon as I got diagnosed, yeah, I mean, growing up, I was called, what was my title? Sit down and disrupting the class.
Yeah, disruptive.
And I grew up in the 80s in New York City. We didn't have ADHD. We didn't have anything like that. It's literally what I grew up with. So I knew that I was always different. It wasn't until my 30s that I realized that I could try a whole bunch of new things and do these things differently, because all of a sudden I wasn't working in a situation where I had to follow the rules. I was doing my own thing. I was on my own, running my own company. And, if it succeeded or failed, it was on me. And so that allowed me a real level of freedom that I never had before. I get to do all these wonderful things I wanted to do and really sort of enjoy and explore. And that led me to every bit of success I've had. And, at the end of the day, I think that it's a mentality of I can do my own thing, or I can be tied down by what people may or may not think of me.
Mm.
Once you stop caring what other people think of you, life gets incredibly better. And you say, oh, well, I'm working for a company. They have to think good of me. Yeah. But if they don't think good of you or don't think well of you because you told them that you're neurodiverse, maybe you're at the wrong company.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd want to. I had a huge brawl with Attitudes magazine, which is the ADHD magazine, because someone wrote an op-ed about why you should never tell your employees, never tell your bosses that you're neurodiverse. Of course, this person was an ADHD coach.
Right. Let's remain in the same cycle forever.
Like, half the article was, what you should do is get a coach. I'm like, all right, bitch, shut up. But so I wrote this huge follow-up, a huge article, pro telling you, why wouldn't you? You're not saying that you have, Ebola. You're not saying you're going to kill everyone, but what you are saying is that you have the ability to create incredibly beneficial outcomes for this company, and you think differently, and maybe you get in super early because you work better for 3 hours when there's no one else there. How is that a negative? So it was really one of those fun. I like starting shit, but I didn't start that one. Look, I joke that when you're neurodiverse, you have two speeds, and I only have two speeds. I have Namaste and I'll cut a bitch. And
100%. That is the best way I've ever heard my personality described. Namaste or cut a bitch.
There's no middle ground, right? And so because of that, you have to be aware of how to live your life. I've learned countless ways to sort of, I don't want to say hack the system, because everyone on the mother uses hacks. My daughter's 12 years old. Dad, I learned this incredible hack. I can look at my phone and tell what time it is. I'm like,
you learned a skill? Cool.
Exactly. You didn't learn a hack. You looked at your phone and tell what time it is. Yeah, but what phone has a fucking watch on it? It's not a hack. But I hate the term hack, but I've learned to sort of work my life in such a way that I can do things. Like, perfect example, I had to get blood. I had to not donate blood. I had to have blood taken today. Every 6 months. They discovered something on my spleen. Every year I go to Tokyo, I go to Bangkok to get a full physical, because it's costs $700 there and it costs $125,000 in America. Yay, America! And the last time I was in Bangkok, they discovered something on my spleen, so I have to go every 6 months now and get a blood check. Just, it's nothing, but so I made the appointment for 1:45 today. I got my daughter to school. I walked home. I got home at like 8:55. I'm like, all right, I have this call with you at 11. My other option is I can do nothing until this call with you and then go all the way back downtown to the blood thing. Or I can call them and see, hey, I have an appointment. I'm going to be near you guys in 20 minutes. Can I jump in? And they're like, sure, go ahead. And I'm like, I knew that would work. So I ran over, got it done, got back here in plenty of time to talk to you. So it's about understanding how your life works and the better ways of getting things done, what works for you in a better way. My day starts at 4 a.m. I get up because I have to exercise. If I don't exercise, I'm not in a good mood. I'm not in a good place. I'm not a happy person. You don't want me there like that. So, you learn the things that work for you, and you learn the things that make your life better. And if other people don't necessarily agree with them or find them, if they find them weird, who cares? Right? Your job is not to please everyone. Your job is to live a great life.
I think it's also just wholly unsustainable, right? Like if you're gonna, the way you're describing your life is the only sustainable way. Otherwise, you're constantly hiding. You're constantly hiding,
Yep, 100%.
and that's exhausting.
And that's really how I look at it. You got to live.
Yeah. Does that get expensive for companies to like let people do things the way that works best for them?
I think it doesn't, because at the end of the day, a company that allows their employees to work in the way that works best for them does tend to increase profits and decrease costs. An example, I worked with a company who brought everyone back to the office after COVID, and they noticed an immediate decrease in productivity. The reason being because they had a ton of neurodiverse employees who all of a sudden for 2 years got to work exactly the way they wanted to. And so they were working, might be working in the middle of the night, working in the pajamas, whatever, but they were doing great. They weren't being interrupted in constant meetings. They came to us and said, "Hey, why is our productivity decreasing? Everyone's back in the office." I'm like, duh. So we created it's an open floor plan. You walk in, you take whatever desk you want that day. It's like a hot desk thing. And so we sourced a bunch of small little traffic lights that sit on top of the desk from Asia. And they came in. Funny, we can't do that anymore now. I just realized. Anyway, bought all these traffic lights, and the basically made it company wide that the traffic lights, when someone's desk has a red traffic light, you leave them alone. When someone has a yellow traffic light, you can bother them. It's important. Someone has a green traffic light, go crazy, talk to them. And productivity shot back up because all of a sudden the neurodiverse were able to work in deep work and not get distracted or get bothered or whatever.
I love that. We get to do that virtually because we utilize our Discord modes. Like if I'm in do not disturb me. It doesn't matter.
Oh, point of it, exactly.
Figure it out. For employees or somebody who's kind of considering whether to come out, right? If they already know or suspect that they are neurodivergent, what would you say to them?
I think the key is why are they coming out? Are they coming out because they want to make a statement? Are they coming out because they want to let their boss know they could be more useful to them? Answer yourself the question of why. If you're just doing it because that's who you are, great. But if you're doing it in a workplace environment, I would suggest going in with reasons why this is beneficial to the company as well, right? Because the first things here, if someone comes to the office and says, "Hey, I have something to talk to you about," everyone's going to tense up. Boss will be like, "Oh crap, how much is it going to cost me?" If you're saying, "Hey, look, I just want to let you know, you probably know this already, but I'm neurodivergent and I'm ADHD and I think differently and I can actually be of much better service to you than I am right now," that's what they want to hear.
And if the company doesn't care, then fuck them.
Exactly.
Ideally. Right.
Well, look, I know that it's not, you can't just run around and get a new job every time you want it. I know,
right.
But you have to ask yourself, is your sanity worth it?
Yeah. Wow.
I think at the end of the day, you just have to realize that you have the ability to create an amazing life. And you have this faster brain that does these incredible things. You have to understand how to use it. And if you can use it to the best of your ability, then you're rocking it.
It's really it's a really hopeful statement, what you're saying, because I think that we hear a lot about neurodivergent people talking about how basically the only way you can be happy is to go off and do your own thing and work for yourself. But that's really hard.
It is really hard, and it's not for everyone.
Right.
And that's not the only way to do it. You can work, but there are tons of, we did all these events for Morgan Stanley last year, and they support neurodiversity better than any company I've ever seen. So, yeah.
What are some of the things that they do that are...
for instance, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of Google. So I spoke at Google about a year ago. I gave a keynote. And when I walked on stage, about 3 minutes before I walked on stage, a woman came up to me and she was holding a box. In the box were, just off the top of my head, sunglasses in case the lights on the stage were too bright, earplugs in case I needed to drown out the audience, fidgets in case I wanted something to hold on while I was talking. They asked me, do I want a wireless mic, a lav? Do I want something on my shirt? Do I want to hold it? What's my sensory perception? Basically, they took all these things into play. And I was just a keynote speaker. Imagine what they do for their employees, right? They have these blue rooms where you can go and just shut off the lights and lie down, and it's noise canceling, and you just be quiet for a little bit. Sometimes that's all you need. So, what did it cost them to create all these things? Not a lot. And what kind of return are they getting? Massive.
What do you think is going to happen to companies that don't adapt these types of policies?
I think it depends on where they are. There are a lot of companies who don't believe in neurodiversity. They don't believe in DEI. And actually, you want to have a lot of fun. Next time someone tells you they don't like DEI, ask them which part of DEI don't they like. Are they against the diversity, the equity, or the inclusion? And you'll be amazed how they just shut up and change the topic. And very, very hard to answer that without admitting you are a flat out racist or a piece of shit. So yeah, I'm a big fan of asking that question. So is it the diversity that bothers you, the equity, or the inclusion? Would you rather not be diverse, be inequitable, or not include people? Which one is how you're? Well, you're woke, and then they run away. It's really fun.
Yeah, we got an email a while back, about a year ago, from a company that is staunchly against DEI. Obviously, I misinterpreted that as being staunchly pro DEI and responded enthusiastically that we would love to work with them because we ourselves as a global company support all aspects of DEI, and we would love to support that in any way. And they just disappeared. I don't know what happened to them.
There's a great Eddie Murphy, and I apologize for the French language I'm about to use. You can.
That's okay. We use that
language here. But there's a great Eddie Murphy in his original Comedian, which is I think 1984, his stand-up special in 1984. He talks about this whole thing where he talks about how if he'd been a slave, the first thing got to go to, yo, slave, pick that gun, and he would have been like, suck my dick, master, and he would have like been, come out of that. And I remember been thinking about that line a lot lately because I realized that there are companies and there are people out there who feel emboldened by the current state of affairs we're in, and what happens is because they feel emboldened, it gives you the clarity for them to understand they have never been punched in the face, right? They have never been forced to be told, especially by a woman, to suck their dick, right? So I've learned that sometimes, as a nicer person as I am, I'm a liberal New York Jew, as nicer a person as I am, sometimes there is value in walking up to someone and saying, you know what, suck my dick, and then ending the conversation.
100%.
I've really become a fan of that.
Yeah. It's just very like, I understand that my dick is bigger than yours energy, and like, it's a you problem.
Yep.
A liberal New York Jew in today's world. High anxiety, lots of stomach aches.
Absolutely.
Hear you. During Pesach especially.
That might be all the mix. I love the
affairs.
Well, that's okay. You give you some matzah and then just everything else that's going on in the world, and yeah, you're not going to shit for 5 days.
And you're just like stuffed up to the heavens. Unbelievable. So we're hearing now a lot about like neurodiversity hiring. Do you talk to people like, what is that, like a quota thing, or
I think there are some companies who do believe in the power of neurodiversity hiring, but I think that there are some companies who feel like they have to do it because it's what their shareholders want, and that's the wrong reason to do it. I think that when they do that, it is about the premise of, oh, look at how woke we are, right? Not because they see the value in it, and that's important. So you don't want necessarily a company to say, oh, we're so about hiring the neurodiverse. No, you should be hiring the best possible team you can get.
And that's going to include somebody neurodiverse, I promise.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think a lot of people are worried about not getting hired. If your hiring manager, or if the HR person in the company doesn't understand neurodiversity, or they're not seeking neurodiversity hires, there's a fear of kind of being seen differently if you disclose. So is there a right time?
It really depends on the situation. I can't answer that. It depends on if the employee thinks they want to, if it comes, it all depends on what you believe is right for you in the moment in which you are.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it.
So what's the first and smallest step to building a life that serves you better?
I think the first and smallest step is to become happy with who you are and what you're doing. Right? That's, are you okay? Are you a good person? Are you happy with how things are going? That's first and foremost, right? What can you do that creates happiness within yourself, right? You can't expect people to want to, you can't expect people to jump for joy about you coming out and saying you're neurodiverse unless you're already joyous about it.
Right.
That's important.
Right. It's just a very personal journey. A lot of
Absolutely.
internal work.
No, it's the same. It's no different than coming out as a different gender or a different sexual orientation, or it's no different than telling people that you're an alcoholic or whatever it is. It's when you're ready and you see the benefit of doing it, then you should do it. Absolutely.
Wow. So if we have any managers or HR directors listening, what is one thing that they can do in their companies or within their teams to make disclosure coming out or their work environment less scary for neurodivergent people?
Be willing to listen. Be willing to listen when they come and talk to you. You know, the premise is that if you are a good manager, then you're more than willing to listen to these people. And you're more than willing to understand what they do and how they can, how their differences can be of use. But more than anything, you're just willing to listen. You're someone who, you're a manager. You're going to listen to them and help them.
So, I mean, everything as always goes back to strengths and celebration of those strengths. So if you are celebrating your strength, recognizing, knowing, and celebrating your strengths leads you to being joyous in who you are, which means that other people can celebrate those strengths along with you, like they're benefiting. So what do they care?
Exactly. I think that for me, knowing them ADHD, it's not really, it's a big part of who I am, but I don't sit there every day and say, okay, you're ADHD. What are you going to do today? Right. I just say, what am I going to do today? It's just who I am. It's a part of me.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure was mine. I think that we got to keep talking about this more because more people need to hear this. More people need to understand that there is a benefit to neurodiversity, and it doesn't have to be this hidden sort of dark secret anymore.
Actually, one more question that is like burning. What would you say about like the rise in diagnosis, the rise in autism, the rise in ADHD?
Well, all I can tell you is what I know about ADHD, and that the majority of new diagnosis now, more than any other group of people, are hitting parents because parents are getting their kids diagnosed, and when their kids are getting diagnosed with ADHD, they say, "Wow, that looks like stuff I have. Oh my god!" And then they realize that they're ADHD. So it's definitely more about that. It's not so much about it's video games. No, it's not. Oh, it's computers. No, it's not. No, it's social media. No, it's not. I see it in my daughter, not because she doesn't have a phone, right? I see it in my daughter because she has my genes.
Right.
So yeah, I think
big Andy.
And then of course we have a current director of HHS who wants to put people like me in camps. So yeah, I'd say it's we're doing well.
Yeah, we're used to camps, right? Just everything comes around for a different reason. But yeah, camp is camp.
I'm thrilled to have been here. Thank you for having me. I'd love to come back anytime and talk more about this.
Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, you guys take care.
You're welcome.